Good evening. Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh, coming up in the next 30 minutes. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar addresses East Asia Summit in Kuala Lumpur, says multipolarity is not just here to stay, but to grow. US President Donald Trump meets Japan's Emperor Naruhito at Imperial Palace in Tokyo to hold bilateral talks with newly elected Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi. Nikkei tops 50,000 mark over positive investor sentiment. Indian states of Andhra Pradesh and Odisha brace for Cyclone Monta, severe cyclonic storm to bring extremely heavy rains across multiple districts. And Indian cricket vice-captain Shreyas Iyer hospitalized in Sydney after getting injured during third one-day match against Australia on Saturday. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar delivered a national statement at the 20th East Asia Summit in Kuala Lumpur today. During his address, he conveyed warmest greetings of Prime Minister Modi to East Asia Summit on its 20th anniversary, welcoming Timor-Leste to the forum. He mentioned that there are growing concerns about the reliability of supply chains and access to markets. Hence, multipolarity is not just here to stay, but to grow, which require a serious global conversations. The minister said India welcomes the Gaza peace plan and seeks an early end to the conflict in Ukraine. He highlighted that terrorism continues to pose a corrosive threat and urged member nations to display zero tolerance, emphasizing that there is no room for ambivalence. He also underlined that India's right of defense against terrorism can never be compromised. External Affairs Minister reiterated India's commitment of an absolute support in the activities of East Asia Summit and its future directions. He also said India remains strongly committed to further strengthen maritime cooperation in line with ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific and shared commitment to the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. He highlighted that 2026 will be observed as the ASEAN-India Year of Maritime Cooperation. Jaishankar proposed an East Asia Summit Maritime Heritage Festival to be held in the ancient port of Lothal in Gujarat and expressed India's intent to host the 7th East Asia Summit Conference on Maritime Security Cooperation. He further said that India was the first responder during the March earthquake in Myanmar, adding that India-Myanmar-Thailand trilateral highway continues to progress. In other news, US President Donald Trump received a royal welcome by Japan's Emperor Naruhito on Monday as he arrived at the Imperial Palace in the second leg of his Asia tour. President Trump will also meet the new Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi, the country's first female Prime Minister, tomorrow. The meeting is considered a major diplomatic test for Takaichi, who assumed office on October 21st. The two leaders are expected to focus on strengthening Japan-US alliance and addressing key security concerns. In addition to meeting Takaichi, Trump is also scheduled to engage with Emperor Naruhito. Japan's benchmark stock average topped the 50,000 mark for the first time on Monday as investors welcomed an easing in US-China tensions and with expectations growing for Federal Reserve to further cut rates this week. The Nikkei jumped 1.6% to 50,080.49 in early trading. The gauge broke through 45,000 on September 16 and has marched through successive round numbers at a rapid clip. It marks a dramatic turnaround for a long moribund market that saw Nikkei take 34 years to finally recover to its bubble economy peak in February 2024. United States and China have agreed on a range of contentious points as part of trade deal ahead of key meeting between leaders Donald Trump and Xi Jinping later this week. US and Chinese officials say that in addition to the rare earths, they discussed trade expansion, US fentanyl crisis, US port entrance fees and the transfer of TikTok to American ownership control.
Chinese and US officials on Sunday hashed out the framework of a trade deal for US President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping to decide on later this week that would pause steeper American tariffs and Chinese rare earth export controls. After 2 days of talks in Malaysia wrapped up on Sunday, a Chinese official said the two sides reached a preliminary consensus on topics including export controls, fentanyl and shipping levies.
The economic and trade teams from both China and the United States met in Kuala Lumpur, with both sides paying close attention to economy and trade on the agenda and making progress with in-depth and frank discussions and exchanges. There were numerous items on the agenda, including export controls on both sides, the issue of reciprocal tariffs going a step further for an extended period of time, the issue of fentanyl tariffs and cooperation on banning the production of fentanyl.
US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said Trump's threat of 100% tariffs on Chinese goods is effectively off the table. The US expects China to delay implementation of its rare earth minerals and magnets licensing regime by a year while the policy is reconsidered.
So this was the fifth meeting that I've had with my Chinese counterpart, the Vice Premier, Hu Lifeng, and we covered a wide range of issues, and I think we've reached a substantial framework for the two leaders who will meet in Korea next Thursday. So, on the table, the president had given me maximum leverage when he threatened 100% tariffs if the Chinese imposed their rare earth global export controls. So I think we have averted that, so that the tariffs will be averted. And we have a regular quarterly meeting with the Chinese.
Trump himself predicted a good deal with China as he spoke with reporters on the sidelines of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations Summit in Kuala Lumpur, saying he expected additional leader-level follow-up meetings in China and the US.
I think a complete deal. I want our farmers to be taken care of, and he wants things also. We're going to be talking about fentanyl, of course. Fentanyl is killing a lot of people. It comes from China, and we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about a lot of things. I think we have a really good chance of making a very comprehensive deal.
Trump and Xi are due to meet on Thursday on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in South Korea. China has yet to confirm that the two leaders will meet. Bureau Report, DD India.
According to a statement by the US Navy, a helicopter and Super Hornet crashed during two separate incidents in South China Sea, with all 5 crew members safely recovered by search and rescue teams. The statement mentioned that the helicopter crashed at approximately 6:45 GMT. The 3 crew members were safely rescued. A separate incident at 7:15 GMT involved the Super Hornet, flown by Strike Fighter Squadron VFA-22, which also crashed during operations. Both pilots ejected safely and were recovered. Meanwhile, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson on Monday said it would be willing to provide humanitarian assistance to United States after 2 US Navy aircrafts crashed into the South China Sea during military exercises. US President Donald Trump said on Monday the announcement by his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin of a nuclear-powered cruise missile test was not appropriate. Earlier on Sunday, Russia successfully tested its nuclear-powered Burevestnik cruise missile, a nuclear-capable weapon Moscow says can evade any defense system and will move towards deploying the weapon. Russia's top general, Valery Gerasimov, chief of the General Staff of Russia's armed forces, told Putin that the missile traveled 14,000 kilometers and was in the air for about 15 hours when it was tested on October 21st. Later on Monday, Kremlin said Russia would be guided by its own national interest. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said there was nothing in the test of Burevestnik missile that should strain relations with Washington. Meanwhile, Russia's defense ministry said on Monday it had downed 193 Ukrainian drones overnight, with local authorities reporting 1 person killed, 5 others injured in the attack. The governor of the border region of Bryansk, Alexander Bogomaz, said on Telegram that a minibus had been struck in the village of Poga, killing the driver and injuring 5 passengers. Russian forces in total downed 47 drones in Bryansk, which borders Ukraine, as well as 40 in Moscow region, with most of those headed towards the capital, according to the defense ministry. Russian aviation watchdog Rosapiatsia said 2 of Moscow's 4 airports of Domodedovo Airport and the smaller Zulkovaskaya Airport were briefly closed for safety reasons. Argentine President Javier Milei party cruised to victory in midterm legislative elections as voters overwhelmingly backed his free market reforms and deep austerity measures. After the results, Milei said his party's big victory in the nation's midterm polls marked a turning point and vowed to pursue reforms his government still considers necessary. He added the voters had shown their desire to irreversibly change the path forward for the South America's number 2 economy. The elections were the first national test for Milei's support since he won office 2 years ago on a promise to revive the long-ailing Argentine economy through a series of painful reforms. And US President Donald Trump congratulated Argentine President Javier Milei on Monday after he cruised to victory in the midterm legislative elections. On his Truth Social media post, Trump says, and I quote, "Congratulations to President Javier Milei on his landslide victory in Argentina. He's doing a wonderful job. Our confidence in him was justified by the people of Argentina." To support Milei, the Trump administration offered a bailout potentially worth $40 billion, including a $20 billion currency swap that is already signed and a proposed $20 billion debt investment facility. Australia's Competition and Consumer Commission accused Microsoft on Monday of misleading people into paying for its AI assistant, Copilot. The authority said it had filed a suit in the federal court against Microsoft Australia and its parent, Microsoft Corp. The software giant is accused of making false or misleading statements to around 2.7 million Australians who subscribe by auto-renewal to Microsoft 365 plans, which include a suite of online office services. The competition watchdog accused Microsoft of misleading subscribers on personal and family plans since October 31st last year. The Commission is seeking penalties, injunctions, consumer redress and costs. Microsoft could face penalties of over $30 million for each breach. Still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Hurricane Melissa strengthens to Category 5 storm as it heads towards Jamaica. India's Vice President C.P. Radhakrishnan meets Seychelles President Dr. Patrick Hermione.
Reddit users are debating whether British even use the divide and rule policy.
This question of whether there was divide and rule is like asking sort of whether the sun rises in the east. It was to accentuate the sense of separation and difference, which ultimately culminated in the tragic horrors of partition. Freedom struggle was a struggle for everybody. How can we accept the logic that had divided the nation? The original sin is right at the feet of the British.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Caught between a weak economy and geopolitical troubles in Europe, the German government is investing heavily into defense. And one company is looking at one of the largest government contracts in its history. Lars Holter is with DW and joins me from Berlin. Lars, What can you tell us about the details of this deal?
Thanks for having me. So first up, the company we're talking about is Rheinmetall, the biggest German defense contractor. That is the company behind everything from tanks to drones to battleships. They have been doing really well over the past few years. No wonder, because there are two factors that have been playing into their cards. First, of course, was Russia's invasion and full-on war against Ukraine, the largest military conflict in Europe since World War II. Such an event, cynical as it may sound, is obviously helping the business of defense contractors. But then there was also a second factor, as the United States under Donald Trump distanced itself from Europe, even from NATO, and forced European countries to re-evaluate their defense spending. With the US no longer a reliable military partner, countries here started to invest heavily into the sector, including a 500 billion euro investment package that the German government put together about half a year ago, with specifically both goals at play: to strengthen the military and the economy as well.
So Lars, what kind of contract is Rheinmetall looking at now?
It's about satellites. Rheinmetall is about to deliver 40 so-called low Earth orbit satellites. Those are satellites that are flying relatively low, closer to the Earth, and that use microwave technology to not only deliver precise pictures of objects up to 25 centimeters small, but to also deliver such pictures at night in complete darkness or in bad weather, as that microwave method allows the satellite to be more versatile. Now, this is a new field for Rheinmetall too, and the company is partnering with Finnish startup ICI. And that firm is seen as the global market leader in what is called synthetic aperture radar. That's the system using those microwaves for high-definition results. The contract, like I said, 40 satellites, is said to be worth 3 billion euros. And the two companies, Rheinmetall and ICI, have formed a joint venture, with some Rheinmetall experts already being schooled in Finland to soon start work.
And how important would you say is this contract from a military perspective?
It seems extremely important, especially considering this problem I have just mentioned, with the United States not being such a reliable partner to the Western alliance anymore. We've seen this earlier this year in March, when US President Trump refused to allow Ukraine access to American satellites' data for a short period of time. That, we are hearing, had military heads in Europe panicking, and apparently made it clear to them that they would need their own fleet up in space to have reliable data and access anytime they need it. Now, once this contract has been delivered in about 2 years, according to the plan, with 40 satellites, the German military would actually have one of the largest and most modern satellite clusters up there, after not having been a big player so far. Currently, Germany has only 8 military satellites running, and some of them are almost 2 decades old. So this contract is seen as a game changer.
Lars Holter, thank you. Moving on, India's Vice President C.P. Radhakrishnan called on President of Seychelles, Dr. Patrick Hermione, today on the second day of his visit to the East African country. Vice President conveyed his wishes to Dr. Hermione for fruitful and successful tenure. The two leaders discussed ways to strengthen India-Seychelles bilateral partnership and reaffirm shared vision for peace, stability and prosperity in the Indian Ocean region and the Global South. Vice President Radhakrishnan also met Vice President-elect of Seychelles, Sebastian Pillay. Both leaders discussed the multifaceted India-Seychelles relationship rooted in shared heritage, culture, people-to-people ties. Vice President also conveyed his best wishes for a successful tenure. India and Seychelles share a strong bilateral relations. Travel and tourism play an important role in strengthening this relationship through cultural exchange. Sharon Francis, Principal Secretary Tourism, Seychelles, spoke more on the importance of tourism as a bonding force between the two nations in an interview with DD India correspondent Jayanti Jha.
The India-Seychelles partnership is built on several pillars. One of those pillars is tourism. To talk about this relationship in greater detail, we have with us Ms. Sharon Francis, who's currently serving as Principal Secretary for Tourism in Seychelles. Ma'am, do you see that travel is a very easy way to explore new cultures, meet different people, open up your mind a little bit?
Oh, definitely. Travel is a great way for people to just, like you say, discover new cultures and learn about the geography of the world. And of course, discover beautiful islands like ours, like the Seychelles.
Definitely. Yes. And there's a massive influx of tourists in Seychelles, including Indian tourists. How do you see that as a way to bridge ties with India to bring the two countries closer?
India has always been an important market for us. And now with a new airline that has connected the two nations closer together, Indigo, we saw a huge influx in 2025. Actually, India now is almost there in our top 10 markets for Seychelles, which is a very important development. Important because it won't just be bringing visitors to the destination as much as for us as Tourism Seychelles, this is what we'd like to see. But it will bring these two nations much closer to each other because other than visitors, I'm pretty sure this flight will also serve for Seychelles to discover incredible India, the land which has so much flavors, but also to facilitate travel between a lot of the
trade
workers, trade, as well as the diaspora living in Seychelles.
This was Ms. Sharon Francis, who told us how travel and culture can play such an instrumental role in bringing nations together, especially India and Seychelles, which have a relationship that has lasted for centuries. With camera person Saurabh Shukla reporting from Seychelles, this is Jayanti Jha for DD India.
Indian states of Andhra Pradesh and Odisha are bracing for Cyclone Montha's landfall on Tuesday, with severe cyclonic storm Montha closing in on Andhra Pradesh coast near Kakinada. The state government has placed its administration on maximum alert. The system is expected to make landfall with about 90 to 110 kilometers per hour winds, heavy to extremely heavy rains across multiple districts. Chief Minister Chandrababu Naidu reviewed the developing situation from the Real-Time Governance Centre at the Secretariat on Monday. He spoke with Prime Minister Modi, who assured full support from the Union government. The Chief Minister instructed authorities to monitor the cyclone's movement hour to hour, take zero-risk measures, especially in coastal and low-lying habitations. He has also appealed to citizens to stay indoors and remain vigilant until all clear instructions are issued. Cyclone Montha is likely to make landfall on Andhra's coast between Machilipatnam and Kalingapatnam near Kakinada on Tuesday. Amid heavy rains, alerts, schools in Andhra Pradesh have been closed. Authorities have announced a two-day holiday in Visakhapatnam, Annakapalli and West Godavari districts, which are likely to be the worst affected by the cyclone. IMD has also issued an orange alert for several districts in Tamil Nadu, including Chennai, Tiruvallur, Ranipet, as the storm moves closer. Meanwhile, 8 districts of South Odisha have been placed under red alert as Cyclone Montha approaches. At least 128 ODRF, NDRF and fire service teams have been deployed. Evacuations from vulnerable areas are completed. Fishing has been banned from October 27 to 31st. Tourists have been warned to stay away from the sea. Meanwhile, Hurricane Melissa strengthened on Monday as it took aim at Jamaica and other parts of the Caribbean as a top-level Category 5 storm, with forecasters predicting catastrophic flooding, urging residents to seek shelter immediately. At least 4 deaths have been reported in Haiti and the Dominican Republic this week, as its outer bands brought heavy rains and landslides. Up to 40 inches of rains were forecast, with deluges expected to bring flash flooding and landslides to Jamaica, Haiti and the Dominican Republic. In sports, India's vice-captain Shreyas Iyer has been admitted to hospital in Sydney after he was injured during the third one-day match against Australia on Saturday. The 31-year-old took a splendid catch running backwards to dismiss Alex Carey, but in the process he sustained a rib cage injury and was rushed to the hospital soon after returning to the dressing room. Indian Cricket Board (BCCI) has updated his medical condition. The statement says he's under treatment, medically stable and recovering well. BCCI medical team, in consultation with specialists in Sydney and India, are closely monitoring his injury status. Indian team doctor will remain in Sydney with Shreyas to evaluate his day-to-day progress. Unquote. Shreyas Iyer is not part of India's T20 squad, which will play a 5-match series against Australia beginning Wednesday. In an annual event celebrating water sports and squashes, residents of Belgian town of Castelli paddled huge boats made of hollowed-out pumpkins. The event features teams completing a relay race of about 100 meters using the giant pumpkin as boats. That's all for this edition of DD India Live. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS. Scan this QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live. Namaskar.